Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing, and our top story, a St. Croix police officer is recovering after being shot during an early morning gunfight that left 2 robbery suspects dead and a minor in police custody. The deadly exchange happened around 2 Friday morning after the home invasion. News 2's Erica Parsons has details.
Today's home invasion brings the total of officer-involved shootings where an officer was shot to 6 for this year alone, and it seems like the criminals are becoming bolder when it comes to firepower. Police say Juvenile Bureau Police Officer Theodore Willocks is being treated for gunshot wounds to his back and leg. Willocks was among numerous officers who responded to a home invasion in progress in Estate Beeston Hill.
Just after 2 a.m. on November 30th, 911 emergency dispatchers received a call from a female resident of Estate Beeston Hill telling them that 3 suspects were in their home demanding money.
The female resident left the phone on and police were waiting for the suspects when they came out of the house. Reporters were told the suspects were ordered to drop their weapons and get on the ground.
They did not comply. Instead, they opened fire on the police officers, and police officers returned fire. 2 suspects were shot dead, and a 3rd suspect was apprehended by a canine officer and his canine dog.
According to police, the suspect in custody is a male minor.
Over the last 6 months, the territory has seen a steady increase in incidents of major crime. While many of these incidents have had the appearance of crimes of opportunity, as a community, we cannot avoid acknowledging that our efforts to bring perpetrators to justice, our police officers have held their ground. I commend our officers for standing firm, many times in harm's way, to take on these criminals head on.
Now, police could not confirm whether or not the hostages were bound, but the 2 people who were inside the home at the time were unhurt. Reporting from Frederickstead, I'm Erica Parsons for News 2.
Police recovered more than 4 weapons at the scene along with the stolen items. A canine dog was also injured, but with the number of officers being shot steadily increasing, Governor DeYoung had this to say.
We want to wish Officer Theodore Willocks a speedy recovery from his injuries, and we salute the officers who responded from different parts of St. Croix to the call for help. They, like their fellow officers, continue to stand up to these criminals who believe that they can prey on our citizens. The officers on St. Croix responded just as officers did last week to an armed robbery in a popular shopping center, just as Chief Howell and Officer Jones responded to suspects fleeing from an armed robbery, and just as Officers Hodge and Jones confronted armed suspects head-on without hesitation or fear of the consequences, yet with the ultimate objective of upholding law and order. Today's incident is but the latest of the recent attacks on our community, a trend that I nor the community will tolerate. Additionally, 6 VIPD officers, including a district chief, have been assaulted and injured by gunfire since May. It is simply not acceptable to me. I commit to you today that my administration will continue to provide whatever resources are necessary to the police.
The joint audit between the Election Assistance Commission and the Department of the Interior's Inspector General's office on how the VI election system has spent or misspent federal HAVA funds has been delayed. The EAC's Inspector General, Curtis Crider, issued a letter to Governor John P. DeYoung Jr. in October stating the audit would take place after the 2012 election was certified by the boards. That happened November 21st. However, the audit has been bumped to December 11th due to the fact Supervisor of Elections John Abramson is not around. Several calls to Abramson by News 2 over the past few weeks have not been returned. According to the Water and Power Authority, 13 companies are currently under review to potentially operate, implement, and supply natural gas or propane to WAPA. Recently, the companies responded to WAPA's request for qualifications, and WAPA's deadline to shorten the list of responses was supposed to be by November 28th, but WAPA says it wants more time to evaluate the companies. News 2's Alison Born-Vanek has that story.
Efforts to reduce the territory's dependency on fuel oil and its rising electric bills for consumers continue with WAPA's move to operate on liquefied natural gas or propane. Earlier this month, WAPA received responses from 13 companies interested in supplying the natural gas or propane, and now it's pushing back its deadline for reviewing the companies and narrowing the list of potential suppliers.
There have been some very detailed, and we actually had a larger response than expected as well for the RFQ. And we have to make sure that we completely evaluate the qualifications of the entities as the next step.
According to WAPA, qualifications include how the respondents can deal with anticipated challenges that include shipping, safe unloading and storage facilities, permitting regulations, dock improvements, dredging that may be necessary, and unfavorable price volatility possible in the liquid gas and liquid petroleum market. Converting liquid natural gas and liquid petroleum gas is just one major initiative in WAPA's Energy Production Action Plan, and one major benefit is its low cost compared to oil.
Aside from just the price of this commodity, we know the equipment has a longer lifespan on gas, like LNG or LPG. The hot gas parts and the combustible parts have a 50% longer lifespan. They allow for more hours of operation before your maintenance has to take place. They have less emissions. So there's a lot of benefits on the financial side as well as the environmental side of making the switch.
WAPA says it expects to complete the review process by December 17th. Allison Bourne-Vanek, News 2.
According to WAPA, the company or companies selected will be notified and scheduled for final negotiations by early 2013. Well, many government employees from several departments were rewarded for taking the necessary steps for their health. The Division of Personnel distributed some incentives, $25 gift certificates for active participation in a health risk assessment completion. On Monday, the distribution will take place on St. Croix at various government agencies as well.
We are trying to get the employees engaged in ensuring that they are fully aware of how their activities, whether it's lack of exercise, how they eat, is impacting their personal expenses in the premiums that they pay on a bi-weekly basis to maintain health insurance. And Cigna, our health insurance carrier, has indicated to us that if in fact we are able to achieve a 75% HRA completion rate, just the completion, just getting 75% of the employee population to complete the HRAs, that it could equate into a $17 million savings. And if you extrapolate that out and divide that amongst the population of 50.
The Fiscal Cliff deadline is now just 32 days away. The White House sent lawmakers a proposal to reduce the deficit, but Republicans call the plan ludicrous. Tara Mergina reports from Washington.
President Obama toured a Pennsylvania plant that makes parts for toy companies. He made the campaign-style trip to showcase businesses that depend on middle-class consumers and put pressure on Republicans to agree to his Fiscal Cliff plan.
If Congress does nothing, every family in America will see their income taxes automatically go up on January 1st. That's sort of like the lump of coal you get for Christmas.
The White House wants to extend tax cuts for the middle class, but raise taxes on households making more than $250,000 a year. Republicans flat out reject the plan.
Now, the White House took 3 weeks to respond with any kind of a proposal, and much to my disappointment, it wasn't a serious one.
Both sides need to reach a deal before automatic spending cuts and tax hikes kick in January 1st. But one former lawmaker tells us compromise has become a dirty word in Washington. Former Democratic Senator Blanche Lincoln worked with Republicans to balance the budget in the 90s, but she lost re-election after helping President Obama pass his health care legislation. She says the tone on Capitol Hill has changed dramatically since she first arrived in Washington.
The answers are not in the extremes. The answers are taking one step at a time and realizing these are not problems that will be solved overnight, but looking for the consensus and building out from that.
2 weeks ago, the parties vowed to work together. Now there is no indication a deal is in sight. Tara Merginer for CBS News, Washington.
And keeping our eye on the economy, the Commerce Department says Americans cut back on spending last month while their incomes remained flat. Disruptions from Superstorm Sandy could slow economic growth for the rest of the year. Analysts say consumers may also be scaling back their spending because of fears about automatic tax increases and spending cuts going into effect next month if lawmakers can't reach a budget deal. This is the New York Stock Exchange with Scotiabank Stock Market Watch. The Dow up 8, NASDAQ down 2, S&P 0.53. Coming up on News 2, we continue to recognize Diabetes Awareness Month. On Wednesday, News 2 brought you Eduardo Faulkner's struggles living with type 2 diabetes. A lack of facilities has made it even more difficult. He shares his story. On Wednesday, News 2 brought you the story of Eduardo Faulkner, better known as Daddy Driver, who has type 2 diabetes. But he says there's a lack of facilities for those who need dialysis treatment. News 2's Erica Bivens brings us his story.
Eduardo Faulkner, or Daddy Driver, has been living with type 2 diabetes since 2004. Since then, the disease has advanced to where he uses a walker for assistance.
And just last month, on the 25th, started out with some chest pain, can't breathe, went to the hospital, and they kept me in, and the same day, they put a device through my chest to my heart to start dialysis.
And they take blood, the patient's own blood, and run it through a circuit, which includes an artificial kidney, which is essentially a very glorified and highly engineered filter. And the idea is that this system removes from the patient's blood things which the patient's kidneys can no longer do for himself.
Dr. Richard Schlussel says about 20 to 30 dialysis patients come in each day, but the total percentage of those patients has increased about 7 to 12% each year. That increase has forced Faulkner to be put on a waiting list at the only place that offers dialysis treatment on island.
And the only way to get treatment now was to actually go through the emergency room.
We're very close to capacity because we have people on and off island for various things. We're getting by, but if the current trend continues, we're certainly going to need some alternatives.
Dr. Schlussel wasn't sure if and when the hospital would add dialysis units. However, once a diabetic patient gets to a certain point, dialysis is the only effective treatment other than a transplant. And although Faulkner remains hopeful, he's considering relocating.
From what they said is that either somebody go away, if somebody have to die, to get a space for a chair.
For News 2, I'm Erica Bivens.
News 2 did speak with hospital operators who said a diabetes support group meets the second Thursday of each month in the Sunroom from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30. Well, 'tis the season of giving, and volunteers of the VI is doing just that through the help of one special Christmas tree. For the third year in a row, volunteers of the VI have set up a Christmas tree with special ornaments that feature ways to deliver a gift to senior citizens and children in need.
You select an angel. The pink ones are girls, the blue are boys, the green are senior citizens, this is female, and the cream is male. You just look, you may like a name of a person on the tree, or you may look for an age range, and you purchase the gift, you bring it back here, and you deliver it to Essence Boutique next door. My number is at the back of the angel, so you could call me too, and I pick it up from here, and we distribute just before Christmas.
What a wonderful gesture. Did you have a stressful week? Well, nothing is better than some laughter, and Stars Nightclub is featuring Flo Hernandez and Carmen Morales. Dallas native Florencio Hernandez, better known as Flo, has been compared to Latino comedy greats like George Lopez for his cross-cultural appeal. He's appeared on America's Got Talent. Carmen Morales has developed a captivating style and is recognized for her outlandish characters. Now that's tonight at 9 p.m. and if you miss out tonight, you can catch the show at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. on Saturday. Stars gives the comedians featured on Comedy Central, The Late Show with David Letterman, The Tonight Show, and HBO. Well, it's one day until MMA Paradise 2, and this morning we caught up with the man at the head of it all, Rigo Rodriguez, as he greeted the fighters as they arrived.
The tickets are moving pretty fast. We want everybody to come and enjoy the show. Also, the ticket price is going to be the same price at the door. Nonetheless, all the fighters are now in, and we look forward for a great event and for support.
It's going to be a good fight. Everybody that knows me, I'm a heavy hitter. My opponent's a heavy hitter too, so it's going to be a good fight.
The Explorers baseball team is holding an invitational tournament this weekend starting on Friday, November 30th at 5 p.m. The tournament continues on Saturday at 10 a.m. and the championship game will be played on Sunday at 10 a.m. Puerto Rico's 9-10 and 11-12 teams, as well as St. Croix's 11-12 and the St. Thomas Explorers 9-10 and 11-12 teams will be participating. All games are going to be played at the Emile Griffith Ballpark, so get out there and support the Little Leaguers. Speaking of which, we have News 2 Sports coming on later, but stick around. News 2 Weather is coming up next.